Hey, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast, the number one weekly USWA review podcast on the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gene Jackson, and look out, folks. This week, we have both of our regular co-hosts in the house. That's right. It's the only duo personally chosen by the late, great Jackie Fargo to be known as the Podcast Fabulous Ones. Don't make us play a long video to prove it. It's Josh Briley and Richard Mulliken of P3 Radio. Guys, how are we doing?
It feels good to be back, both of us here. It's like when I was like 6 years old after my ball surgery. It feels good to have both of us back in the sack, you know. And I'm thankful for this show, Gene. You know, we do a lot of things here, and like you said, we're a number one USWA podcast and everything. And we haven't stooped so low to do stuff like product placement yet or anything like that. It's just been mostly just hold on one second. That tastes like the new generation. We haven't done anything like that yet, so we haven't stooped low. We're still keeping our standards. We're still doing our thing. So kudos to you guys. Josh, it's good to have you back. I hope that gay cruise was really good last week.
The what?
Huh? Never mind. Go ahead.
No, man, it was great.
Proper terms, alternative lifestyle. Richard.
I got a bit of seasickness, but everything else went smooth, man. Just slid right through.
Well, that's nice.
Actually, just it went too fast. You know what I mean? Like you're having so much fun, and it just seems like no time passes, and you got to leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough. But yeah, how'd y'all like that? I had a we're just gonna slip past that. As a matter of fact, we're gonna let that just move right on by. I had a listener suggest that we jazz up the intro a little bit. Did you guys know? It turns out that all this bullshit these other podcasters say at the beginning of their shows, that doesn't even have to be true. You could just make up attributes for your podcast, and you can literally say any damn thing you want, and there's nobody that checks you on any of that. Now, what I said was true. We are the number one weekly review USWA podcast on the WrestleCopia Network. Now, I mean, we're the only one, but that also makes us the best, right? So, I'm not exaggerating. I'm just stating a fact. We are the best weekly USWA review podcast about the year of 1993, currently in July, out there anywhere. I defy you to find a better one. And if you do, Richard will kiss your ass right on the crack if you can find one. So,
and I mean, we don't try to placate to like the younger demographics or anything, Gene. But I always say this: what you just said was no cap, homie.
I'm gonna take your word for that. I don't know about Josh. I have no idea what. I'm not up on what all you hipster kids are saying these days. Do you know what that means, Josh?
He means he's just not wearing a cap. We are.
Oh, well, that's
he's not lying. No cap.
Again, he's telling the truth. So again, the podcast that always tells you the truth, the Retro Wrestling Review. That's our goal here. We might always be good. We might always be funny. We might always be entertaining. We may not always be timely. But we always tell you the truth.
Yep. And we're not really the ones you go to for roof advice.
No.
But yeah,
maybe for roofie advice.
Wrestling in a studio in Memphis, Tennessee in 1993. We got you covered.
We're on top of it. We were. I mean, we're all over it, like Joshua on his alternative lifestyle cruise, and that Christopher Love impersonator who was singing all week long.
I may or may not have been a Christopher Love impersonator.
I was told that you boarded that cruise under the name Joshua Love, but that's just purely speculation. I don't know if I wasn't there.
He's like, I got my baby oil and my pineapple magnets ready.
I've saved up 2 income tax checks for this.
I was hoping you were going to come back with a lay on and a Hawaiian shirt singing Tiny Bubbles like when Bert came back a few weeks ago.
You know how many surprise eggs you have to sell to go on a gig?
It's a lot of raffles. A lot of raffles at intermission.
Yep.
And And we want to thank Brian Trammell for filling in recently for both of you. All the both of those BT fans out there, never fear, the spoiler will be back here in a couple more weeks to tell off everything slightly before it happens here on the show. I mean, you got to work hard to spoil shit on a show that covers 30-year-old wrestling, but somehow BT was in rare form last week. Josh, you missed it. He was spoiling shit left and right. It was amazing.
No, he had already texted me everything he was going to do, so he spoiled that too. I didn't have to listen.
Don't even listen. I'm not going to the show Monday night.
Here's what's happening. I wouldn't have went to that show, and your uncle won a car. But you don't bother with it. There was a lot of Richard talk on there, and I didn't care for that much, honestly. Gene kept saying stuff. They kept wanting to talk, and I really just wanted to kind of be about me. But anyway, come on my 5-minute podcast next week where I'll talk for 4.5 and you can get 30 seconds of plugs in, and it's a lot of fun.
Hey, did he send you a text message afterwards, Josh, that said, "I missed you today"? He did. Now, off the boat. I will say BT was real fun to work with last week. He did send me a text message afterwards and say he had a blast. We had a good time last week, laughing.
This is all in fun. It's all part of the shtick. We're all great friends with BT. Yes, we always have fun when he's here, and it's actually it's made things a lot easier. You guys have stuff going on, especially Richard. He's got family stuff that goes on. He's a fucking comedian, and
he travels more than the $1 Million Man did.
Yeah, he's a world traveler, like Mark Gouline, and that's an old reference for some folks. See if you pick that one up from back in the 80s, man. The House of Gouline. Yo Mamba, the Jungle Savage. But anyway, so it's awesome to be able to have BT's always more than happy to slide right in there with Josh and step in your place there and be the third man, so to speak. It's kind of his specialty. So and that whole thing was in tribute to BT because he's the only person I know, as I mentioned last week, who can put something over while completely burying it at the same time. I'm hoping that I'm getting the art of that down. I'm working on it. I marvel at his ability to do so. So
it's something very southern about that. Something very southern about that.
It's like he walks up and slaps you and tells you how good you look.
Yeah, I feel like my grandmother did that a lot. He's smart. Yeah. He's been one of them special classes. That's why he's doing so well.
They're really paying off.
He couldn't make straight A's in a regular math class. They gave him in the counting apples and shit. But yeah, he's doing good.
Normally ugly guys don't look as good as you do on this show, Gene, but you somehow managed to pull it off, and I'm proud of it. Yeah, it's one of those things where you're like, fuck you, what? Huh? Yeah. And then you just kind of walk away confused.
My grandmother would have looked at me and was like, "Don't ever shave that beard. Richard, don't ever shave that beard. It hides some of your worst features. So don't shave it."
So Josh, last week when Richard had returned, I gave him a rundown of everything you missed, and I was going to do the same for you, but then I realized that pretty much everything you would have missed last week gets covered in this show at length. You may or may not know that Uncle Jackie cut a 7-minute promo on his couch talking with his son. I don't know how this works. He's Uncle Jackie, but Jeff's like his son that him and Jerry had together. So like Jeff's the butt baby of Jackie and Jerry.
Well, you forgot the most important part of that, Gene. He did it while not wearing any pants.
Well, we were getting there.
I'm sorry.
Settle down, BT.
I'm sorry.
We only got room for one spoiler gimmick on this show, but yes, he cut a 7-minute promo on his couch talking to his son Jeff Jarrett like he was fucking Rain Man, and basically bestowed him the great honor of making him like the 5th or 6th person to be personally chosen to be a fabulous one. And I had here at the end. And we probably should mention he was clearly not wearing pants for this entire exchange, Pally. But he did get a new couch. So, spoiler again, I'll just put my fedora on here. Next week, It's going to be our Christmas episode of Retro Wrestling. It's going to be literally Christmas in July. And we're going to be handing out some presents. And I got to tell you, I was already planning on getting Jackie Fargo a new couch, but he beat us to the punch. He already had one. So maybe we'll have to get him some pants or something. I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. So.
All that nude couch sitting, it'll ruin a couch. He did also make Jeff sound like he had a learning disability when he was younger. He's like, used to come up to me all the time, be like, Jackie, play basketball. I was like, geez, Jeff couldn't really talk.
That's the way he made it sound. Like,
yeah,
I remember you just a wee little retard and couldn't say no words, and used to call me Uncle Jackie. And okay, here's the weirdest thing about that. We're gonna move past this. He describes how when Jeff was a kid, he would lean over and Jeff would grab him by the hair of his head, and he would lift Jeff up and down using the hair of his head as Jeff clung to it. I've never in my life heard of anyone doing that, and I don't know why you would want to revisit it on television 30 years later. But
it's definitely a redneck thing to be proud of. You know,
look at it, Brenda. Was there anybody in your family that y'all used to ride their hair, for lack of a better word?
Definitely not.
No one's doing that to Uncle Richard these days, I can tell. But
no.
Yeah.
In fact,
there's a few uncles though that probably did have sit downs with their nieces and nephews with no pants on the couch, right? So
they were pulling up on something, if you know what I mean.
That's the type of Uncle Jackie Fargo was. You know, I'll traumatize you and then I'll build you back up. That way, it seems like I'm taking you really far up. But I just felt like he did everything but say, yeah, Stan and Steve couldn't get the job done with what I bestowed on them, Jeff. But you are the fabulous one.
Josh, what's wrong with having neck and uncle parties? We called those hot dog parties.
I'm not trying to.
You sat on the couch. You sat on the couch without your pants. The uncle said it's a hot dog party. That's what we called it. And you take Polaroids. It's a great Tuesday afternoon before
we call them sausage parties at my house, but maybe y'all was working with less. I don't know.
Vienna sausage parties.
Maybe Jeff was a really good brother and he was just taking the hit, so Jennifer didn't have to back in the day. But we'll get to that. We'll get to more on that relationship here a little bit later as well. All right. So with that lead in, let's travel back in time to Saturday, July the 10th, 1993, for another episode of USWA Championship Wrestling. And this week, guys, not only is all right with the world here on the Retro Show with you guys back, this week we had Dave Brown and Corey Macklin here together at the desk, the way God and Jerry Jarrett intended to host the show. And they seemed pretty darn excited about it, honestly, as they should be. They let us know that we can expect to see the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, going to be against Johnny Polo in there, who apparently is just suddenly back now after being AWOL for a few weeks. So we just throw his name out there like he's been here all along. We're going to see Scotty, not yet too hotty Taylor, teaming up with Randy Rockett to take on C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. And then in the expiration of time match, which is a term we hadn't heard in quite a while here on TV, Brian Christopher will be taking on the King, Jerry Lawler, right here in the studio. And I have to admit, guys, after a bit of a lackluster show match-wise, to say the least, last week, the card sounds promising. Did you guys, listen to this and go like, all right, we may have something here today?
Yeah, I thought they definitely were trying to put their best foot forward after last week's, one match that we had.
Felt like it. Only one that we only had one match that actually resembled an actual match.
All right. So yeah, it felt like at least they were trying to do a make good on that.
Yeah, it seemed like honestly they were super stacking. I mean, like that's something we've seen before. Brian Christopher versus Lawler on TV, but the last one was a hell of a match, so I can only imagine what this one's going to be like.
Yeah, I went into this pretty excited. Now, sometimes, it sounds better than what we actually get as far as how they book the matches and everything, so we will reserve judgment. But going into it, it sounds promising. So we take our opening break that we always take, and as we return, Dave mentions that it had been a big week in the USWA, and we go immediately to a clip of Jerry Lawler defeating Owen Hart for the unified title. So let's check that out right now.
Swerving to Morale, picks Lawler up and slams him down. He's got a pair of brass knuckles, it looks like, that Prentice handed to him. Comes off the ropes with them and covers Lawler. Hooks the leg of the King. He's got him covered. Stuffs the brass knuckles in his tights. Frank Morale's out. Here comes Paul Neighbors. Referee Paul Neighbors comes out and calls for the bell. In 7 minutes and 53 seconds, referee Paul Neighbors comes out and calls for the bell and gives Owen Hart the unified world title. Hey, Frank Morale is back on his feet, though, and Frank. Hey, he shoves down Paul Neighbors, snatches the title back from Hart. Hey, Frank says restart the bell, says he's refereeing the match. Yeah, we're restarting it. Hey, and they knock Frank down. Hey, give me the title, Prentice. There goes Paul Neighbors hightailing it out of here. Paul came in and counted to 1, 2, 3. Hey, look at Frank. He got him.
Wow. So, I try not to watch ahead on these so that I don't really remember what's going on. I guess maybe I should at least watch 1 week ahead, because after I took the time to spend the whole little segment of the show last week showing a picture of Owen Hart with the unified title while wearing his MC Hammer Aladdin pants, for some unknown reason, he decided to rock those this week in this championship match out of the blue. So I'm going to blame those god-awful pants for being the reason he lost the title here. Short run for the Rocket as the USWA champion, but a cool accolade, or as Lex Luger once infamously said, allocade, to have on his resume, I suppose. At this point, there's nothing at all subtle about Paul Neighbors being a heel referee. So my question is, from a kayfabe perspective, guys, why in the hell is he still being used to referee matches? Like later in the show, he's the referee for Jarrett versus Polo. He's the referee for Lawler versus Brian Christopher. So who are we supposed to think as fans is making this decision? Are we supposed to assume that Eddie Marlin is assigning him these television matches and these, matches as a referee, or are we just not supposed to think about these kind of things and just let it happen?
I think, they should have come out and they should have been like, look, we know that he is biased, but we have a contract with him and we have to officially give him matches to, they never explained it though. And then I still can't feel bad for anybody but TD Still here. They used him as a referee for like weeks. And then it was like, as soon as that's over, they're like, Paul Neighbors is going to be the heel referee. It's like, all right, well, can we at least, can I do something with him? Like,
but you still need a babyface referee, right?
Yeah. Well, we're going to use Frank for that.
Yeah.
It's like, dadgummit.
We're going to use old No Neck for that one.
Can I at least get booked to wrestle some matches? Well, no, you were just a referee, so
yeah, that wouldn't look good.
Yeah, so yeah.
Well, I hate to burst the bubble, but Dave Brown kind of subtly addresses something to that effect right before the match. But just as, a child, I mean, I always assumed that there was some type of like, well, that's the organization who decides, and he's still a referee, so maybe he's got like some kind of it's like a job thing where you got to sign a deal to work there or whatever. So maybe it is some kind of contract thing. I always assumed that because I remembered the way Danny Davis, the other Danny Davis, was in WWF, where they still had to use him because he was a part of that. He was a referee for them. He signed to referee matches, and unless Jack Tunney would fire him or whatever, they had to use him. I always just kind of grandfathered that shit in.
I mean, I guess that's fair. And you're right. Dave does address it later in the show, finally, after this has kind of been rocking on for 2 or 3 weeks of this now. But, I'll just play BT here. Spoiler, TD Still does get a a role in today's show later on in the show, what he probably wishes he'd have stayed home for. But anyway, next we learn that Bert Prentice says he has a new opponent for Lawler, and we get a word from him. And let's check out this. If you're watching the video version of the show, and if you're not, you should be. It's more fun that way. But get it however you get it. No judgment. But check out, if you are watching the video version, check out this promo and keep an eye on the background behind Bert as this rocks on here.
You know, Jerry Lawler, I've been thinking about you a lot this week. I've been thinking about all the mistakes you've made in your life. How you must feel being a total embarrassment to the USWA. How you must feel that all your life you've done nothing but make enemy after enemy after enemy. And Jerry Lawler, my dear friend, you've made some very serious enemies here lately. Two of my dear friends, Bret Hart. You embarrassed him on a major pay-per-view wrestling show. His brother Owen Hart come to Memphis to try to talk to you, try to deal with you. You try to embarrass him, pile drive him 9-10 times, and steal my belt. Well, Jerry Lawler, you have enemies now like you've never had in your entire life. Jerry Lawler, I'm not sleeping well at night, quite frankly, and neither is Bret Hart or Owen Hart. And right now, I'm going to take a pill to let me sleep at night. And Jerry Lawler, I heard you're afraid of things that go bump in the night. What is that I heard? Was that a bump in the night? Jerry Lawler, I'm not going to rest. And I have promised the Hart family that I'm not going to stop until every drop of blood is gone from your living body. Sleep well, Jerry Lawler.
I don't know if anyone wants to hear Bert Prentice start a promo out like, I've been thinking a lot about you this week.
What? Why did that look like Bert was doing some kind of spot at like a local, like, what is it called? Deaf poetry reading?
Yeah.
Spoken word.
Yeah. Like it was like he was doing some kind of weird haiku.
Haiku?
Haiku?
No, Haku.
No,
No,
haiku.
King Haku.
I got this stupid cold. Anyways, it was like he was doing some kind of haiku, like on a stage at a coffee house or something. And then the vampire guy comes behind him and does like weird jazz hands.
Yeah, just you can't see his face, you just see his hands. Like, oh, he's gonna be really scared of these hands. Look at those black nails. It's not paint, he's got a fungus, but
Josh,
they're gonna get you.
See, you guys are looking at this through the wrong lens, man. Like that just showed Bert's like versatility, you know what I mean? Like he can come out and do a promo a certain way, you know, where he's really flamboyant and like just being a diva, and then he can come out and just be a comedian and kill at that. And I mean, it seemed like this was the way that he actually came into USWA, a real serious tone. You know what I mean? And he presented himself that way at first. Like, dude, Bert was so good, man. He could do whatever mood you wanted. Bert could be whatever you wanted him to be. And that is an extremely rare deal. You know what I mean?
Well, Josh, what would it sound like? You know, it's the Christmas season. What would it sound like if Bert got up on that stage and started reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" or something like that? You know.
Well, unlucky for you, I don't know any of that shit, so I can't tell you.
Or just anything.
The night before Christmas.
There you go.
As far as it goes.
That's all I wanted. I didn't want you to read the whole book.
I mean, I thought you'd know that, and all through the house part at least, you know.
Yeah.
Is that the same?
Maybe we need to write. Yeah, that's what that is. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house.
Gotcha. I'm not big on Christmas stuff, man.
I'm gonna tell you something, Gene. If there's no big boobs in it, I'm out.
Well, see, that's how you can start. It's like not a creature was stirring, except Miss Simpson taking off her blouse. Maybe me and Richard need to get together and write a.
Not a creature was stirring. Micropata wasn't in my house.
Certainly nothing in my pants. Yeah, maybe we need to write a USWA version of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" and have Honey Love read it for the show here. That might be fun. I don't know if we can get through the whole thing. It's kind of long. That's what he said.
It is a long. It's like, could you imagine if we had to write the entire thing?
I'll have to do that in phases.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just get the first few lines. We can work in some references to. But you said he can do anything he wants. So I mean, all right. So Richard wanted to hear "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." I want to hear if you needed Bert to go out and convince us that he's having an affair with Miss Simpson. What would that sound like?
I totally nailed that woman in her female vagina. I'm telling you. I promise. I totally banged her. It was great. And I can't tell you any details, but I did.
I like her bosoms. But no, this is the most low-key Bert Prentice promo in the history of our show so far anyway. Like it was it stood out to me for that reason, if nothing else. And then I like how he like turned around. I think the vampire had missed his cue because he like turns and like, is that something he goes bump in the night? And then all of a sudden the hands come on screen and you start seeing him. Like I was like, what's he got to do? Fucking finger puppets here? What are we doing? Like
shadow puppets.
Like show the fangs if you're going to show anything, not just his weird looking hands. But more on that later as we move through the show here. But then we go to a clip of Principal C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. winning the USWA Tag Team titles from New Jack and Homeboy in only their second match as a tag team. And, well, actually, Melvin's second match in the USWA. They win the titles, and since BT isn't here, I guess I'll be the one to spoil it. This would be the last time we would see New Jack and Homeboy here in the USWA as a tag team. 1 week run with the belts, and now they're moving on. And honestly, guys, in retrospect, I'm kind of fine with that. The run of New Jack and Homeboy was not as fun as I'd hoped it to be. Or do you guys feel differently?
I will remember you. They had one promo, won the belts, and lost them. Oh, man, there are people that still were wearing the same underwear that they were when they debuted, and then they left. Like, it was crazy how quick that run was.
I'd help the motherfuckers pack, man. I am so glad I missed last week in the sense of I didn't have to hear that tag team name or see any video clips of them.
Are you a little sad you didn't get to say goodbye, Joshua?
Well, I mean, like I said, and the only thing I'm sad about is Mark Freer. I feel like if you could control him the right way, he could do something. You know, he looks like something, but he's I don't think he's not meant to be a homeboy.
Yeah, now he's screwed. No. Now he's homeboy. So
all right, here's a fun question, Josh. Tag team match, loser leaves town, and it's New Jack and Homeboy versus the Bruise Brothers, Ron and Don Harris. Who are you picking for that one?
I'm going New Jack and Homeboy out for the win.
Oh, okay. All right.
Bruise Brothers.
I had to test your hatred there. You're standing true to your hatred of the Bruise Brothers. I was hoping you were like, I hope the ring catches on fire and they all burn down with it or something.
Oh no. The hatred that I have for those guys is so deep, and it can't be outscorned. You know what I mean?
That's going to be one of the great mysteries of this podcast.
I think my brain would melt if you asked me Hitler or the Bruise Brothers. You know what I mean? I'm not sure I could make that choice.
Wow.
Well,
they do have those Nazi symbols tattooed on eventually.
Hey, Gene, you might want to edit that part out.
It's just a joke. Come on. Loosen that butthole.
He's like, it's just a joke. I would choose the Harris brothers. He's like, Hitler's never done nothing to me personally.
You ever seen some of them paintings he had? They wasn't bad.
Did you just say loosen that butthole like Bert Prentice?
Listen
Did I
that
catch
butthole.
that? I think you
I
said
just
that.
joke, honey.
There was ever a time for that voice. That was the line right there. Oh my god! And that is that's Josh's replay of how Colorado Kid became NWA champion.
I got big plans for you, kid.
What can I do to win the title? Loosen that butthole.
He never done anything to me personally. It's gonna get me all week.
Ooh, all right, folks. If you thought we hadn't reached our lowest low of the show, that's a new one right there.
Oh boy!
Wow, there's so much happening right in that segment. And damn it, I'm not cutting it out. It's staying. We'll make up for it.
Get a lot of heat, Gene. We're gonna get a lot of heat.
So, as usual, we got bombarded with one person over and over in multiple segments. Bert is back out here saying that his other team of Simply Divine, they want a shot at his new tag team of Bergstrom and Penrod, but he says that Simply Divine don't deserve a shot, and that they're a family, so a title shot is not going to be happening. Dahl and King come storming out, and they confront Bert, and that goes about as well as you'd expect it to go. And next thing you know, the thong singlet wearing tag team of Simply Divine have turned babyface by attacking and double teaming poor Bert Prentice until Bergstrom and Penrod come out to make the save. And as you described that, it sounds like, a heel turn, or, them doubling down as heels on poor Prentice. They're double teaming this guy, and now Bergstrom and Penrod make the save. But the crowds, they were firmly on Simply Divine's side, which is somewhat surprising because I have to figure, based on you guys' unwavering hatred of the gear of Simply Divine, that you guys are siding with Bergstrom and Penrod.
It's such a catch-22 there. It's like one of those, what is those things called? The paradigms or whatever, where if you could go back in time and give yourself a tape, like of something that happened in the future, like who created the tape? Because now you've always had it. You made that loop.
Yeah.
I don't know, like if we were to choose one of those sides, my head might explode. Like I don't think I could do it. I do wonder who booked the whole, and was it written on the blackboard in the back that said Bert gets double teamed by Simply Divine?
Bert wrote that on the board. You've heard how he's been described week after week. These beautiful men. He goes like way over the top, putting over the looks of Simply Divine. But I mean, I guess there's one thing you can say about this feud. If you take the team of Steve Dahl and Rex King, and you take the team of C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod, if just one team has to wear thong singlets, I guess you're picking King and Dahl, regardless of what team you play for here.
Dude, I love that shit, man. I love them thongless. Like, and did you see what both of them? I mean, Steve Dahl specifically had the fucking Zubaz on. When he came out there, I audibly said, "Oh shit," because what Uncle Danny did with those son bitches on. He whipped the whole goddamn heel locker room. So if he's coming out there to do some contract negotiations with those Zubaz on, like, I'm doing whatever the fuck he says. And I have to get behind them because they are thongless. And I've said many times, I like them. The only thing holding me back is the thong. But I absolutely love Principal Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr., the A student. I love that whole thing. I love how they're presenting it. I'm latching on to it. So I think I would still have to go with the principal and the A student.
So you would want to see them in the thong? Is that I think we got off track with the
Who would
question.
win? Is that not what we were talking about?
No, the question was if only one of those teams was going to wear thong singlets, which one do you want it to be, Dahl and King or Penrod and Bergstrom? And then you went on this long diatribe, and you ended it with, I would have to go with the principal. Penrod.
Well,
so that's who we landed on who's wearing the thong singlet, because that's.
I was waiting to see where it was going to end, because I was expecting it to end where it normally ends. That's why Strawberry Nestle Quick's way better, Gene. What was the question again?
I get,
I mean, I respect your decision.
Yeah.
I'm not here to
I've seen pictures of CW Bergstrom from Portland. He's quite the build on him, so it might pay off. I don't know.
He's a tall tree.
Wow, I'm not sure where we're at now. I had something in mind when you started talking. I had something in mind that I was going to say, and then I got lost in your discussion there. But now I am glad though that you are able to talk about, because you weren't here for our introduction to Melvin Penrod last week, and I actually had got an opportunity to have a phone conversation with Melvin Penrod, and he kind of gave me his background. And I talked to him for about 30 or 40 minutes about his whole run in wrestling and his time in the USWA. Great guy, and hated the gimmick. He understood it. He played it well, but he was not a fan of it, obviously. But
that gimmick made him a champion.
Yeah, and it gave a purpose to CW Bergstrom. This is the first time since he's been here that I feel like there's potential for the principal gimmick. Because it just felt dead in the water before. And as I had mentioned to Richard and BT, having him out with Mike Samples just felt like more of the same. It felt like two people kind of playing the same character almost. And there's such a stark difference between Bergstrom's character and Penrod's character. And this whole, this whole element of, Penrod comes out last week, this, nerd, and you have these immediate judgments of him in your head, like, all right, they just found some guy to look like an overweight nerd to look the part. I bet he's not going to be able to wrestle to save his life. This is going to be awful. And he gets in the ring, and he's like Vader and motherfuckers in the ring, and you're like, oh, shit. So I like the dynamic of, like, he comes off like this harmless nerd, but then when he gets in the ring, he actually can, like, do some damage, and then, the bit with the apple and all that. I love the dynamic of this team, and it actually makes CW Bergstrom watchable to me. I look forward to his segments where before, when it was him and Jeff Gaylord, it's just like, oh, this shit. I can't fast forward through it, but God, do I want to. So glad we got to hear your take on that. And I kind of look forward to see where they go from here. But obviously, they're getting behind them. These guys won the tag team. They show up together on a Saturday. They win the tag team titles on a Monday. And Bert has sided with them over Simply Divine on Saturday morning. So clearly these guys are going to be here, and we're going to get to see where they can go. As Doll and King as baby faces, the jury's out on that. I don't know how fans are going to get behind them, but they did get behind them in this particular instance. But I was like you, when Steve Doll come out wearing Zubaz, I was like, shit is about to go down. This is not just going to be talking. Because he's going to start doing his Steve Austin, swagger with his promo. He's got Zubaz on. Rex King was wearing something that looked like like a tights version of Zubaz. Like it looked like a Zubaz pattern, but they were clearly like spandex or some such. I don't know, but it was an interesting look for both guys. Yeah. Before Temu was a thing. That was flea market Zubaz, I guess, or that's if you asked Josh's grandma to make you some Zubaz, but all she had was tights material. Yeah, so she worked with what she had. So I think after all that, and especially with us getting out of hand previously with some stuff that probably should be cut from the podcast, but is definitely not going to be cut from the podcast, I say we take our first podcast commercial break. We'll try to get the train back on the tracks. And get ready for what we got coming next in the next segment. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
And Melvin Penrod.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school, but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jarrett, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
As we led into the break, what'd you think about them stereo splashes there from Bert Prentice and Melvin Penrod?
I love it. Double time, double team, two splash. I mean, dude, Penrod, like I said, I love that. He looks like if he would have, obviously he didn't stick with it, right? You said you talked about wrestling career. It didn't take very long.
USWA is where his wrestling career ends, and there's couple of reasons for that, which we'll get into over the course of the next few months. We won't spoil his ending here since BT's not with us this week, but yeah, eventually we'll talk about what led him to getting out of the business. But yeah, we got a good few months in here. We got some time with Melvin before he exits. Now, next up, we see a 60 Minutes report on an Australian rugby player turned NFL player, seemingly turned professional wrestler. That remains to be seen. But this guy's name is Colin Scott. Now, just to be clear, I don't give a shit about football. I give even less of a shit about rugby. So I'm zoning out, looking at my phone, looking out the window at cars driving by during this whole clip while I was originally watching the show. And suddenly, it goes from a 60-minute segment to what feels like an 80s Australian Mountain Dew commercial or some such. Take a look at this tomfuckery right here. What the hell happened? Like I said, we're watching 60 Minutes, and then all of a sudden it turns into a music video with that god awful song. I'd rather listen to the Wendy's hot drink song on an ever ending loop than listen to more of this Australian guy. And if you think things couldn't get worse than that music video, get ready to be proven wrong, because we get a promo, and not a promo. It's not a match. We get whatever the hell this is. Check this out. And then we're going to talk about this guy on the other side.
Later this week. But the legend's worried what it is. He would prefer to have an opponent where he can get what would appear to be an easier victory. And look at the size on this guy right here. My goodness. And an athlete who's been in training for years, first in rugby, then in football, now in the USWA. And all right, Tony bars that arm. And cuffing him on the back of the head there a little bit. Yeah, no, that's not a wrestling hold. No, there's nothing legitimate about that wrestling hold at all. Hey, grabbing him by the hair, putting his face into the mat, that's... Boy, Tony's version of legitimate professional wrestling holds is quite different from what the rule book. Look at this, he's hitting him.
Yeah, just clobbering Scott right across the back of his head. Yeah, but look, Scott gets out. Kills Falk that big kick and kicks him out of the ring. Oh, yeah, Tony Falk says you'll pay for it.
Yeah, but he got out of there real quick, and I think Mr. Scotch is going to be able to hold his own
against the legend Tony Falk, and maybe a bunch of other folks too. Yeah. Colin, way to go, and good luck to you on this debut match coming up.
So we don't even have enough confidence that Crocodile Colin here can have a believable scuffle with Tony Falk, who could work with a kid in a wheelchair and make the kid look credible as a wrestler. So we sell this upcoming match by having him take his shirt off and allow Tony Falk to put him in a half-ass armbar until he breaks out of it by just essentially kicking Tony Falk in the ass. And that's how he escapes. The technical way he escapes this armbar. What did you guys think of this whole segment and this guy who, by the way, Dave Brown alternated between calling him Colin Scott and Colin Scott a couple of different times.
Colin Scott sounds like something you would take. Like Docalex or something. You know how sometimes we'll watch these shows and they'll have commercials in there. Like for some reason, when I was watching this, I thought they threw an Outback commercial in there. Like I was getting ready to hear about a bloomin' onion, and I'm like, all right, let me fast forward. I'm like, oh, this is more of the same for the guy that's debuting. Yeah, that's not good when all you can do is get slapped in the back of the head and throw an awkward looking kick. Like I saw this guy when he came out. I was like, he looks good. Looks like $1 million. He's got the size. He's got that jawline that looks like he was drawn. And then when he got in the ring, it's like, ooh, he's removed all like benefits that he could have.
Yeah, he instant heel with me, dude. Like I had to pause the video to make sure that I didn't like accidentally thumb another video because of that commercial.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about, I was kind of on my phone and shit whenever they were doing his football background and stealing footage from NBC. And you know, I zoned out a little bit, and like you said, whenever the commercial came on, I had to pause it to see if it still said USWA blah blah blah.
We don't have the written consent from the NFL to show this, Dave.
And then, you know, the only thing I could think of when he took his shirt off in the ring was, we needed this son of a bitch to be Lord Humongous, not He-Man or Randy Lewis or whatever, you know, not him.
Yeah.
He would have been perfect, but that kick in the hip, that was so shitty. That cannot be what him and Tony discussed in the back. That cannot be what happened.
I would hope not. But you know, this kind of guy was what that Lord Humongous gimmick was created for. I mean, it's what they did with Sid and Continental is you put that gimmick on him. He doesn't have to talk. No one expects him to be able to wrestle. He can just go out there and choke people and put them in bear hugs until we can have some spot show matches for 2 or 3 months and he can start to kind of figure this shit out. But we don't do that here. We tell everybody exactly who he is, what he is, where he's from. And again, we don't even have enough confidence that they could get into any kind of little scuffle into a little fight. We just have him go in, take his shirt off, and hold his arm out, essentially. And then Tony puts like the loosest working one-armed armbar as he's slapping him across the back of the neck or whatever. This was the weirdest thing for them to book to try to bring somebody in and make us give a shit about them. I just can't believe this is the best segment we could come up with to get over this Australian guy. I mean, where the hell's Bill Dundee when we need him? Yeah, that's right. He's Lord Steven Regal's manservant as Sir William in WCW. That's where he's at.
The whole thing screams Aussie man forgot his spot, because the whole time you can see Tony like smacking him in the back of the head. He did that way too many times.
Oh yeah.
It's almost like they had something planned and then he forgot about it, and then finally Tony was just like, kick me in the ass.
Yeah. Do something, brother. Do something, brother. Do something, brother. And then that was what he came up with, was to kick him in the ass. Or like you said, in the hip, basically. He didn't get around to his ass. Not their finest moment. So what do we do to make up for that? We bring the King out for a promo. And, of course, what's the King do? He cracks fat jokes on Melvin Penrod and Bert Prentice and says he's not afraid of standing behind Bert, of whatever was standing behind Bert in that promo. He's not scared of things that go bump in the night. he even breaks out the old "If You're Feeling Froggy" jump line, which is old and tired in 1993. It's certainly old and tired now, but we're not going to show the clip here. But let's see. There's a shot of the King. He's got his belt back. He's got his silver jacket on that Dave seems to be kind of jealous of. Dave's eyeballing it there. Sweet ass jacket he's got on right there. I'd wear that on the news to do the weather sometime. But last week, Josh, we had kind of a repeat. Like Jerry came out and kind of just redid the promo he did the week before about Owen and Brett, but just with a lot less enthusiasm. It's kind of scaled down. So I think we've kind of, for the moment, we've moved past the enthusiastic King, and now we're kind of back into, all right, where's the softball game going to be this week? What did you guys think about Jerry this week or so far? Because we're not getting one promo. You get at least two.
It kind of felt like this was his scheduled time to be out here, and he had to make the appearance. It didn't feel like fired up King. You didn't get the sense he was taking on Macho Man, and he had to bring his A game in this one.
Yeah, to me, like we hadn't heard that it was going to be any kind of monster thing or anything like that. It was just some dude doing stuff behind Bert Prentice being serious Bert. So, like, in a sense, he kind of shit the bed on it because he's like, I've faced monsters before, if you recall, Leatherface, Dr. Frank, and he named off another, the Mummy, and all this shit. And I'm okay. In the video, I saw debut of Vampire Warrior as in the title.
Yeah.
But still, if I'm just watching it on TV5 that morning, I didn't know shit about a monster. It was just, like I said, some creepy dude behind Bert. So it did feel like he was on autopilot. I was glad to see him with the belt around his waist again. But like I said, at the same time, just it didn't feel like he was engaged.
To me, the monster thing almost felt more in reference to the segment we just saw. Like I wanted him to finish that going, I beat Leatherface and Lord Humongous and blah, blah, blah. Football players a lot shittier than the one we just saw here a minute ago, and that's saying something. But no, we were referring to the monster that we haven't yet deemed a monster, other than just Bert's creepy delivery of the promo and the bump in the night shit, I guess, was an implication that this was some sort of monster, but we certainly didn't get it from the jazz hands, as you put it earlier. So more on that later, folks. We haven't heard the end of Bert and his monster and the King. So, I was starting to think we had already moved on from this Jennifer on the Road bit because there hasn't been mention of it in a few weeks. We just been getting the little commercials about, call this number and see who's, as she puts it, see who's leaving the USWA and see who's coming. Is all we've been getting. And I know, we had some fun with her visit to the King's house the first week, but apparently I don't think Jerry Jarrett was too amused by that whole segment because, again, with the next segment, she went to her grandfather Eddie Marlin's house, and now she hasn't been on TV in weeks. And when she does show back up, she's doing a segment with her big brother Jeff Jarrett, even though we're not supposed to know that's her big brother Jeff Jarrett. And they go out on the lake and they ride a jet ski, and to no one's surprise, Jeff dumps her off in the water at one point, which was the whole point of this segment. I was going to run a clip of it, but YouTube edited out the music, so it really wouldn't play well for our audio listeners if we were just watching a video with nothing. But she gets dumped off in the water, and that's pretty much the payoff to that whole thing. So we'll skip past that and go straight to match number 1 of the day. It's the fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, the USWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, taking on Johnny Polo. And listen closely at the beginning of this clip to Jarrett's new music and this little intro at the beginning where they say the fabulous one. It's kind of odd.
The fabulous one.
Jeff Jarrett, the Fabulous One, so anointed by none other than the original Fabulous One, Jackie Fargo, climbs in the ring. Southern heavyweight title handed out. His opponent, Johnny Polo, here today. Non-title match, but Johnny Polo is standing there waiting to get into action. Well, Johnny Polo, backs Jarrett up, nails him. Covers up, 1, 2. Oh, that 2 count.
Boy, he's counted that fast, didn't he? Whoa.
I don't know if Paul can move that quick, but he counted 2 real quick in there.
Hey, shoving it. Hey,
Yeah.
come on now.
See now, look at that.
Inviting Jeff to hit him and then shoving him back. I know what it is. Have time to do that.
Boy, you only got about a half a second of a 2 count. Look at that. Press from there. Look at Paul Neighbors.
What is this?
Just walks over there, gets down, and doesn't even count. Boy, Jeff goes up the ball. Neighbors gets in there and shoves Jarrett down. Boy, this Paul Neighbors has got to be ridiculous. He has got to be something else. Jarrett nailing away on Polo over there. Hey, Neighbors has Jeff. And Polo covers Jeff Jarrett. Jarrett, oh, he's trying to fight Polo and Paul Neighbors. He's got Neighbors. Snatches him up in the collar. Now Paul Neighbors and sends him down. He busted Neighbors. Neighbors up. Yeah. Neighbors with a couple of punches, couple of left hands, nailing away on Jeff Jarrett. Right in the midsection. Here comes up for Jeff Jarrett. Midsection. Jumps on Paul Neighbors. Nailing away on Paul. Here comes Brian Christopher. Oh boy. Christopher picks up Miss Texas. And slams her. Oh boy.
I don't know what Miss Texas did to Brian Christopher. But he hits that poor woman and slams her harder than anybody else on the entire USWA roster every time he gets his hands on her. It is crazy.
Are we sure that she didn't accidentally hit him in the tip of the dick with that belt when she was swinging it a couple, and it's still not healed properly or something? Because he is angry.
Angry, like not even like, oh, he's just trying to sell it. Like, no, dude, we all know how that stuff works.
Yeah, I love Brian, man, but there was a total disregard for her body. Like, he just slung her like he would sling a fucking burglar out of his house. Like, just dropped her any kind of way, treated her like and honestly, like, I don't know how she was backstage or whatever. So she may have been a royal bitch during these times, but I've never heard anybody say that. So I don't know. It's just really weird.
Yeah, it really is. And Corey seemed extra fired up during this match. It seemed like to me, like he had a lot more enthusiasm. He dropped ridiculous more than once. So from where this clip leaves off, eventually, referee Frank Morrell comes in to make the save for Jeff Jarrett, Miss Texas. So, yes, referee Frank Morrell. We know Lawler's there. He was just out there. But did Lawler come make a save? No. Referee Frank Morrell comes and makes the save. So that pretty much tells us what we're in for, and we'll find out more about that soon. I thought it was kind of fun because, like I said, that the Fabulous One plays through the studio and then he hits. Fabulous One Jeff Jarrett is just essentially our preview of the soon-to-be Double J Jeff Jarrett in the WWF. He's got the tights now. He's actually rocking this look from his first WWF doll I seen sitting over there. I was like, oh, let's grab that and illustrate our point here. But so we're starting to see Double J coming together, and we're gonna have a 6-person tag match coming up, but more on that later. Anything else you want to say about this match before we move past it?
What was up with his music? It was like Fabulous One, and then it went into it sounded like Jerry Lewis playing the bongos. Like, what was that?
I don't know. It's an odd
I think
choice.
they found like one of the first Casio keyboards that had programmable shit, and that was just the music effect choices at the time, and he just programmed some shit sitting there on the couch with Jackie Fargo. Oh man, Jeff, that sounds good. Let's keep that, man.
Jackie,
He even did like the Fabulous One shit.
Jackie, I thought you said that you could play keyboard. Well, on those chopsticks. Well, hell, just roll your fingers around on that drum machine over there. That'll be his music. I liked his old. Why can't you just be Fabulous One?
Yeah,
But
just get right back to the whining guitar chord there. Yeah, because I feel like the way that come off, it was like he got the new gear, he had everything, and then like 5 minutes before the show went on the air, they're like, "Oh shit, you can't come out to the same music." Well, I don't have anything. Well, go grab the Casio out of there and let's get something done. You know,
grab that luau music we had and throw it in there.
Eddie Marlin with glasses on, and he's looking over a keyboard, pushing buttons to see what sound. They're like, "Yeah, let's go with that."
Sounds
Speed
great.
it up. That'll work.
He's
Jeff,
leaving
like,
in a
I
few
like
months.
my old music. Shut up, Jeff. Like here, talk into this voice changer. The Fabulous One.
That's really just the Fabulous One.
And
they slowed it down.
Like,
It sounded
give it the
like
old Black Scorpion effect there. Jeff, the Fabulous One.
Did it not sound like a reject of what they were going to call Jimmy Snuka in WWE? Because it kind of, you know how Superfly, it was kind of like Fabulous One. At one time, they were going to call Jimmy Snuka the Fabulous One, Jimmy Snuka, and that's why that would
having it.
That's why the music was all Polynesian like that, you know. So
Jackie was like, "I'm not sitting on the couch with a murderer. Damn it, I did not choose him." I mean, sure, Jimmy used to hang from my hair back in the day, yeah, but oddly, Jimmy Snuka could say basketball better than Jeff. It was weird. I don't. Even he didn't say basketball. brother, let's play basketball. No, Jimmy, no. So,
brother.
After the break, we see highlights of the finals of the Camaro tournament from last week, as Uncle Danny faced off with Brian Christopher. And of course, when Uncle Danny has this sort of success, we got to play this clip. But you wasn't here with us last week, Josh. There were 16 guys in this tournament, which essentially meant last week's card had 19 matches. Now, you would think, Jesus Christ, they would have had to start this show at 2 p.m. to get over with. Well, here's the plan they came up with. No, we set up 2 rings side by side and had 2 tournament matches at a time going on simultaneously, ending in DQs, countouts. All the USWA greatest hit finishes were happening in 2 different rings at the same time. I wish like footage of that whole show existed, because that would be our next live stream, is us trying to call 2 matches happening at the same time for this freaking tournament. But right now, let's see Uncle Danny in his finest hour, perhaps, against Brian Christopher.
Grabs it. Pulls Danny Davis to the middle of the ring. Throws the rope out on the floor, and there's Christopher climbing the top rope. Oh, look out! Here comes Miss Texas. Oh, boy! She's shaking the ropes. Christopher falls down off the ropes. Danny Davis rolls him over. 1, 2. He's got it. 1, 2, 3. 10 minutes, 32 seconds. Danny Davis, your winner of the tournament. Here comes that good-looking Chevrolet Camaro through the back of the Coliseum. Here tonight to do our presentation of the keys to the 1993 Chevrolet Camaro is Mr. Ken Hallam from Guadney 2 Chevrolet, located airways at Winchester near the airport here in Memphis, and he'll present the keys to Nightman Danny Davis. Mr. Hallam.
Thank you very much. All right. Hey, God bless you, Memphis. I love you all. I love Guadney 2 Chevrolet, too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
Happy young man here with good reason. That brand new, great-looking automobile was his.
I had to leave that part in where he calls Uncle Danny a happy young man right there, because Uncle Danny wasn't exactly a spring chicken in 1993, but, you know, compared to Jackie Fargo.
Gwatney 2 Chevrolet 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yeah, that was that should have been an as well, huh?
They may have clipped it, but I was really hoping we were going to get a whoop. That is Night Night Danny Davis wins the Gwatney Chevrolet 2 Camaro in there.
Should have been a cowboy. He wins the match.
He's got friends in low places. He's the winner of the Camaro.
Like a rock, Danny Davis, Gwatney 2 Chevrolet.
Mr. Bojangles.
That pop, man. Oh my God. It sounded, that was one of the biggest pops I've heard at the Mid-South Coliseum. You know, just thinking, like from what we've reviewed, man, it sounded like the crowd was super into it. Because I guess it seemed like you would think, well, Brian's going to cheat his ass to the win on this. He has to. But
they were excited. They were happy for Dan. He don't win matches every day. So
I'm sure they all look just like Richard did during the show last week when I was reading these results that night in the arena as he won matches. They're like, is he supposed to win? Okay. And then when it came down to Nightmare Danny Davis and Brian Christopher, like, fuck, we're going to have to listen to Brian Christopher brag about winning a Camaro for the next 10 years. And then when Danny Davis wins, I'm sure there was this genuine like shock. Like, what? He won? What? Holy shit. Because, you know, they don't know the story if he bought the one in Continental or whatever, or whatever that we told on the show. But, you know, Miss Texas got to come out and I'm sure she took great pleasure in knocking his legs out from under him and making him hit that top rope after the ass whipping she had taken and knowing she was about to take another one momentarily for costing him the match. I hate to do this to the listeners, but I've had a few listeners message me recently and say their favorite part of the show is hearing the Miss Texas promos and our reaction to them. So with that in mind, I felt like we're not going to listen to Jeff. We're not going to listen to Frank Morrell, but we do got to hear what Miss Texas has to say about this upcoming 6-person tag team match this week.
Well, it was quite a wild night there.
Miss Simpson, I got you in a 6-person tag. You think you're so tough? Well, I'm going to see how tough you really are. Now, you can run, but you can't hide. And when I catch up with you, I'm going to knock your teeth down your throat. You're going to wish you never heard of the name Miss Texas.
There you go. Short and to the point. She's going to knock her teeth down her throat, and she's going to wish she never heard the name Miss Texas.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the only one to comment on this promo. Come on.
I mean, if there has to be a Miss Texas promo that's not written out, I mean, evidently they just put too much time and effort into Jeff's music, like right there at the end. And they just she goes like, "What do you want me to say?" I don't fucking know. Just go out there and say whatever comes to your mind. And
except now we're starting to build thinking, oh, you can say anything comes to your mind, except don't tell her to kill herself.
Right.
Don't say you're going to beat her like you own her.
Yeah, you've used that line, and that got turned around on you pretty bad. We got some letters to Channel 5 about what they responded to with that. So anything but those two things.
What if she like took that like literally, and then she walked out there, she's like, I hope you have an overdose, but they bring you back to life. It's like, wait,
you trash bag hoe.
Right. It's like she thinks she's skirting the line, but she's really not. It makes it
Jane,
worse.
you ignorant slut.
Yeah.
Hope they gotta feed you from a tube for the rest of your life.
Your mama and them be crying, looking at you.
Hope you take a bath from a tub, a wash tub.
That's why I'm glad you out here with Paul Neighbors, because that's the kind of men you be sleeping with for money. Because you a hooker.
Yeah. And we all know what Paul Neighbors does in that house of horrors he has that he shoots videos from.
Yeah, you know, it's sad that you did miss it last week by not being here. You missed Paul Neighbors' shirtless promo last week, Josh.
Oh no, I watched some of the I figured we may talk about a little bit of it, so I skimmed through most of the stuff from last week.
Did you have the same reaction Dave did? Because he wasn't too happy with.
He's just out in his shed. Like, he don't want to show anybody the inside of his house. He's probably a hoarder or something. So he went out to his workshop. Let me show you where I change oil and stuff. Okay, he's just out there working in his.
This is where I do all the work, otherwise known as skinning the bodies.
That's what I was gonna say. If that feels like one of those moments on Dateline where they're like. And they had no idea who was causing the murders until a mysterious segment on a wrestling program came on, and we noticed some of the things in the background.
Right. Oh, but yeah, that rag just sitting on the third shelf that looks like it was freshly used to chloroform a poor young innocent person before they got thrown into a trunk.
You look back, you see a ring of keys that's labeled dungeon entrance. I don't understand how they knew.
some ransom note taped together back there that he forgot to leave at the scene. And yeah, so we have another break, and then we're going to hear from Brian Christopher, referee Paul Neighbors, and Miss Simpson. And we're familiar with Brian promos right now, and this was a good one as Brian promos go. But I do want to hear a little bit of Paul Neighbors and Miss Simpson here to give them equal time to Miss Texas. So let's check this out ever so briefly.
Fighting you, Mrs. Texas, is getting to be so much fun. While you get mad, I go shopping. You'll never beat me. You'll always lose. Always lose. And while you get mad and you look disgusting and you get humiliated, I'm going shopping and acquiring new friends. Right, Paul?
That's right. And what are you going to do to Frank Morrell? Let me tell you something, Frank Morrell. Monday night when you come, won't you bring you a cake? Because I'm fixing to retire you permanently. You understand? And Miss Texas, you found out one thing. I don't care if it's a man, a woman, a child, or a kid. When you get in my face, you put yourself in a man's position. You understand? And Jeff Jarrett, you're just like all the rest. When you get your shoulders down for the 1-2, what do? You want to start crying and start interfering. Well, it's going to be over. You understand?
You ain't got to worry about Jeff Jarrett because I'm going to take care of him. Just promise me that before you squeeze the last bit of breath out of Miss Texas, hand her over to me and hand Frank Morrell to me so I can slap him around and show him what a real man's all about. You get ready because we'll be there, boys.
Okay, so full disclosure, I mainly just wanted to air that clip simply for Paul Neighbors saying, "I don't care if you're a man, a woman, a child, or a kid." Like a child, or like there's a distinguishing difference there.
Well, one of them was a baby goat, Gene.
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
I whip the shit out of a baby goat. He get in my face.
Man, I thought that I had a flashback of one of Richard's uncles, dude, that was a similar speech. He did on me and Richard.
My grandmother has said that same sentence. I've told it before. And look at Miss Simpson there. Didn't she used to be a maid? It's a real rags to riches story here going on.
She's got a promotion.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, the week before when you weren't here, that she upgraded from a maid costume that looked like they got it at Party City or something to all of a sudden the one week she come out wearing a dress looked like she either stole it from Miss Elizabeth or Nancy Sullivan or somebody, and then now I don't know how to describe that. I mean, it's just straight up sequins, but I mean, it looked like maybe she's going to manage the Macho Man or something, but yeah, it's definitely a different look from the generic, like I say, maid costume that she was wearing before. So the promo was a little more consistent she didn't sound more or less British, but at least her voice stayed the same all the way through from the extremely British to the extremely Texas, back to extremely British for 3 words, and then back to Texas. Like it kind of stayed, consistent for what it's worth.
She apparently tans in a sports bra. Why was her chest so white?
What were you doing looking, Richard Lee?
I was like, what the word? It was distracting. It was like
you was a Jennifer fan.
I am a Jennifer fan. Jennifer way better than Miss Simpson. It's the innocence.
Josh, would you like to respond to that?
I mean, I'm a fan of tan lines, so I was just kind of focused. But I will say this. Her promo was 10 times better than Miss Texas. So
yeah,
at least she's got that down. And she's such a cunty bitch. I love that type of, valet. I mean, she's perfect for Brian. They complement each other.
Let's be fair though. She did just repeat the same line 3 times.
Kind of, sort of.
I mean, so if you looked at it like that, if Miss Texas came out there and just kill yourself, kill yourself, kill yourself, it would be great. But she didn't. She just said the one thing from the heart. Miss Simpson came out there and repeated her phrase 3 times.
Yeah, still better than what she had going on.
Yeah, but I'll say there's not many lines that Miss Texas says that you could really get away with repeating 3 times. But although it did kind of answer the question we talked about, she's wearing different clothes. She mentioned that Miss Texas is mad and she's out buying new clothes. So that's where she's finding the time to get these new ensembles here is she's out buying new clothes while Miss Texas is clearly not at home writing promos. We can only assume. So all this time, and we are just now to match number 2 on this show. The USWA Tag Team Champions, Principal C.W. Bergstrom, Melvin Penrod Jr. with Bert Prentice. So if CW is a principal and Melvin's the A student, what school role would Bert Prentice have, I wonder?
Headmaster.
Hey, all right. They're taking on Randy Rockett and Scott Taylor. Taylor and Rockett look like they have raided Brutus Beefcake's closet by what they're wearing this week. But it's a fun little TV tag team match going here until them bastards, Steve Dahl and Rex King, run in, interfere. We get our usual disqualification, non-finish. I was pretty freaking pissed. Like, we couldn't have done that after having at least a decent tag team. And we haven't had a decent tag team match in a while. This one was starting off pretty good. And then we go right to a freaking run in DQ. I don't know. I was up here and immediately just felt like the rug was pulled out from under us. Was not happy with this, but I mean, should be expected, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, dude. I was not surprised with the finish, but it was a great match. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Like that super kick that Scott Taylor gave to Penrod, that rivaled Brian Christopher's super kick. Either that or the camera angle was perfect. Either way, it looked like $1 million. And, like I said, I love the whole A student thing and, everything that Bergstrom has going on. It's like it's momentum now. He's not paddling people anymore, which I thought was hilarious. But maybe now he's got the A student. He can just kind of help him hold people. But, yeah, I thought this has got to be Simply Divine running in to just cause a little more of a CF to kind of add the cherry on top for Monday night.
Yeah. The thing that made me so mad about it is I knew in my heart that as a fan, the tag match we were seeing with those two against Randy Rockett and Scott Taylor is a far better match than what we're potentially going to see out of them against Simply Divine. So I would have rather seen them wrestle these two guys and not even have Simply Divine in the mix than having to get this match ruined by them running in to promote a match with those two teams. It's not going to be near as good, but
if you think about it, honestly, we haven't had any, just little peaks at what Randy Rockett and Scott Taylor could do at this point on television. I mean, we've seen their names listed in the Monday night cards, but you rarely ever see any footage or matches of them. And Randy Rockett's been on a few times, but he's just basically jobbing. But it seemed like in this match, it was a little back and forth for an extended period of time during this match. So I liked that this was like a little window in what you could really see Randy Rockett and Scott Taylor do.
Because the one time we gave Scott Taylor a single match, we put him in there with Chris Frazier.
Yeah.
And what was that going to be? But what it was, So, but yeah, so hopefully we see more of them moving forward. Tons more. We put the tag belts on New Jack and Homeboy, and we knew what we had there. We knew it was a terrible team. Both guys are green. Just in this one little match, Scott Taylor and Randy Rockett has shown more potential as a babyface tag team than New Jack and Homeboy ever thought of. So hopefully we keep them together. Hopefully we do something with it. That remains to be seen. So Lawler comes back out for his second promo of the day where he promotes softball and such. And then he brings out the king of boxing, the world bantamweight champion. Was it Kenny McKinney? I think is what he said his name was. Something to that effect. Like I didn't clip this. I hope nobody's upset at that. But here is there they are putting over the t-shirt. Look at Dave Brown there mugging there. He's hitting the old Jim Halpert pretty hard that time. And then there's a shot of the king of boxing apparently holding up his championship belt. I don't think he could take Tommy Gunn. He certainly couldn't handle Rocky, so he's not the king of boxing. So
depending on time period, I don't think anybody would want to take on Tommy Gunn, right?
Hell no. Tommy Gunn was the man.
I was just talking about after the diagnosis.
Well, yeah, that's a whole nother story there. I don't think even Bert would want to go a few rounds with him, considering all that.
It's a game of chance.
And I'm rolling the dice tonight. Oh, man. I'm still on the fence whether I should clip part of that out earlier. We've never really gone that hard in the paint on Bert Prentice.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Hitler stuff.
Oh, no.
That was a joke, though.
Wrestling fans aren't going to care about the Hitler stuff more than the ones who are going to get insulted by making cracks about Bert Prentice. But
we have had a lot of them on here.
Yeah, we have. They're usually more subtle than what I said about the NWA title. But I think Josh shows him enough love, it counters it out. I think we can say whatever bad stuff, and Josh puts him over strong enough, it balances. So I think we're okay.
Did I cross the line with Headmaster? That was really a
no.
Okay.
No, it was perfect.
Right,
sometimes I think less is more in the reaction. I think because we say so much over the top stuff, I think the times that I just quickly move past it, it makes it feel like more of an offensive thing than it was.
Like, and hurry along.
And I'm afraid of where it's going to go from there. Like, especially weeks like this week. I'm like, ooh, if we start there, God knows where we could end up. We better just keep it moving.
We've already talked about Hitler and hot dog parties. Come on, let's keep it moving.
Let's combine the two. Let's talk about a Hitler hot dog party. Match number 3.
He's got to be somebody's uncle, right?
Had to be. Absolutely had to be. Unified World Champion Jerry the King Lawler versus Brian Christopher with Miss Simpson. So as a fan, I'm realizing this is our third match of the day here, and Paul Neighbors has now refereed 2 of them. One of the matches was the match of a guy he's wrestling on Monday night, and now the other is the match of a guy he's tagging with on Monday night. But again, watch the show, and Dave Brown at least tries to address this as best he can without getting too far in the weeds on that. So we'll let that be good enough for us if it's good enough for them. So let's see a little bit of how this played out with Jerry Lawler against Brian and Christopher. You guys are never going to guess what ends up happening.
That does it right there.
Oh, look out. Oh, so that does it. The King got a little hollow around the collar. He goes after Brian Christopher. Slimming away on Christopher. Oh, boy. Christopher just deliberately looked like threw him into Paul Neighbors.
Don't tell. Oh, look out. Lawler sees it. He's got the chain, and look out, Brian Christopher.
He nails Christopher, goes over and gets it around the neck of Prentice. He's choking Bert Prentice with it. Oh, Prentice calling for help now from the back. that? Oh, boy, what in the world is that? Some strange character. I don't know.
Oh, look at those teeth. I don't know.
That's got to be that Vampire Warrior.
Vampire Warrior, that's right.
Boy, he comes from behind and nails Lawler. Got the King down. I don't know if he's fighting on him over there, what he's doing. Comes on Lawler. He's got blood all over his face from fighting on Jerry. Got the King cut open. Oh, boy. Here comes help. Here comes Chris Frazier, yeah. Frazier comes in, jumps on Christopher and the Vampire. Oh, boy. And he, man, oh, man. Well, a big clothesline takes Frazier out, and Christopher kicks up. That's TD still. TD with a kick from behind, slows the Vampire down. Oh, and a headbutt on TD still.
Vampire Warrior looks like big-time trouble for the King.
TD, good news, pal. You don't have to referee this week. Really? Who am I wrestling? You're not exactly wrestling. You're going to come out and save the King. Well, you're going to try to anyway. Man, he brought it with that big jumping kick. He got one lick in, and he made it count. They shut him down after that. So we spent an inordinate amount of time. I mean, that's clipped all the hell. But on the actual show, when you watch it, there was a lot of time with Vampire Warrior, a.k.a. Gangrel, a.k.a. Blackheart #2, pretending to bite the head and neck of Jerry Lawler here. I get it. He's a vampire, but holy shit, this drug on for what felt like forever. What did you guys think about all this?
I was starting to get a little turned on, to be honest with you, Gene. No, the weird part about it was TD still coming there, and it didn't look like he was supposed to be there. Like he just come in off the street and just karate kick somebody. And so that explains where TD's been. He's been at the local mall learning Taekwondo. And the other thing is like, if I'm ever getting my ass whipped, I really, and you guys are around, I hope you put in a better effort than poor Chris Frazier did when he came in there and just basically looked and was like, man, he's getting his ass whipped. Oh, now I'm getting my ass whipped. I don't think he really threw one punch. Just like he got his ass whipped.
The look on his face screamed, I've never been in a position where I got offense before. Like, wait a minute. I don't throw punches. I'm here. Well, what?
Poor TD at least threw like a Liu Kang kick there.
TD shot his shot. He's like, I'm going out in a blaze of glory like John Bon Jovi's son. Like in his head, I'm quite sure you're the best around was playing in his head. And in his head, he was about to have a fucking Karate Kid moment in there. And no, the fucking Vampire Warrior Johnny Lawrence was not having it.
I couldn't quit thinking about, like, can you imagine Vampire King whenever he pulls the strap down? Like, he's already almost unstoppable at that point. But if he's a fucking vampire now, that's a whole different kind of king, dude. But seriously, I mean, I kind of liked it. You know, I can remember thinking as a kid, you know, it was just like, oh my God, he's really biting Lawler. And the visual was whenever they pulled away and you see the blood and all that, Gangrel's kind of in the background and he opens his mouth and you see the legit fangs. It's not like, you know, where he's just taking them in and out and stuff. I think they were like implants or they were really good fake ones. But either way, he's got that going on, the blonde hair. I mean, it's a really cool visual. Like, he was always one I enjoyed seeing, like, posters of and shit back in the day and just your random wrestling magazines. Like, he always took a good picture, and I love monsters and stuff. So either way, my God, like, he's got more credibility than, say, Dr. Frank or any of the other monsters.
Once you saw him, you think, man, we were really wasting this guy putting that solid black mask over him as one of the Blackhearts. Like, he's a lot more marketable like this than he is with a freaking mask of any sort.
Yeah. One thing's for sure, he's not related to a Briley. because he takes really good pictures.
If a Briley had done his promo shots, we'd have been lucky to see the teeth. Like,
right. You just got like part of the shirt and then the person he was standing beside.
Look at him pecs on that man.
Maybe Uncle Danny was shooting him in the back earlier. That's why we only saw his hands. Do I need to come out in the light more? No, stay back.
No,
Stay
you're
back.
good. You're good.
Perfect. We got
Bert's
you.
like, am I centered really well? Oh yeah, you're centered.
Oh yeah, this is great. They're gonna love this on TV. No, I agree with you as far as the presentation, and I even liked what he did, the biting with him being the vampire. I just felt like it went on for a lot longer than it needed to. But my other problem, and this goes back to like earlier when Jeff and Miss Texas found themselves in trouble, and we let referee Frank Morrell make the save to set up the tag match, is like, we all know that Jeff's here, Scott Taylor's here, all these people are here, but yet we send out, after a long time, we send out Chris Frazier by himself, who couldn't fight off a gang of kindergartners apparently, and he gets his ass handed to him, and then we wait a few minutes, and then TD Steele comes in like a house on fire, as Gorilla Monsoon would say.
He looked like he was jumping out of a house fire.
Yes. And then he gets handled. And then, 20 minutes later, finally, we start getting the Scott Taylors and the Randy Rockets before we get some real help. It's like, what are we supposed to think these guys are back there doing? Or, at least the one time we gave the excuse of Lawler was in the shower. And that's why it took forever for us to end the lynching of Coco Beware on television. And then he came out naked with soap all over him. I guess it would send a weird, like if Scott Taylor, Randy Rockett, and Jeff Jarrett all came out in their underwear all soapy. I mean, sure, it'd be Bert's wet dream, but I mean, it probably would make us like, what's going on in the studio back here? We're all showering together. But I don't know. Just those kinds of things are always questionable to me when we know we've got baby faces there, but nobody will come help Lawler. But a couple of jobbers, at least for a while. But anyway, it's a pretty strong debut for the Vampire Warrior to come in here. When's the last time we saw blood on television at this point? That kind of stood out to me. I liked that you could see Lawler was trying to find the camera. When he turned back around, you see he looked this way, that way, and then there it is. He gets the eye on camera there. But overall, pretty good stuff. One little thing I'll tell real quick here that Melvin Penrod told me in the interview with him. I asked him about, C.W. Bergstrom, about, traveling with him and if they got along, and if Bergstrom had ever told him that this principal gimmick was supposed to be building towards him going to the WWF to feud with Sean Waltman. And he's like, well, no, he never told me that. He said, but honestly, he's like, I got along with Bergstrom. He said, but we didn't hang out together. He said, I think we traveled together one time. He said, one time when we were up by my house, he stayed at my house one night. He said, I think we had one meal together. He's like, he said, once he came in the next week, he said, I traveled with Vampire Warrior. He said, with David. He's like, we got along. He was super cool. He said at the time he was married to Luna. And so Luna was paranoid that he was out partying and hooking up with women. He's like, meanwhile, he's like, I don't want to cause no trouble. He said, I'm a young guy, in the business. He's like, so we're just either hanging out at the hotel watching movies, or we're going and eating a pizza or something. And like Luna's calling around like, what are you doing? Who are you fucking? And it's like, can you imagine? He's like this vampire and this nerd guy hanging out together. Like, we weren't fucking nobody. So he said that she was constantly trying to track him down to say what he was up to. And he's like, wow. And Penrod's like, he was hanging out with the safest guy on the roster. That nothing was going to happen. Like, we were just having fun. We weren't doing anything wrong. Which I just picture those two guys cruising around in the car together. I'm sure that probably was a pretty fun duo to ride with then. And he said that Bergstrom was just like a quiet dude. He was intense, and said all he wanted to do was go to the gym and come wrestle, which, at this point he's wearing a polo shirt in the ring. Nobody really sees him. But like when you guys alluded to earlier, I've been seeing some of his Portland stuff, and he was in really good shape. And yeah, he was a gym guy, but this gimmick really didn't give him a chance to show that off. But Vampire Warrior is here, so we will see how this goes from there. Now, as I was watching this the first time, I looked at the time and I'm like, well, that's got to be the end of the show. We saw the main event, but we still got a little time to go. I said, this must mean Dave is going to drag out the Monday night card, but I was wrong. We weren't done yet. Before we go, Johnny Polo, who is still dressing exactly like Scotty Flamingo. We only saw the Polo get up once for one promo, and he's never worn it again. The rest of the time, he's just been Scotty Flamingo for the most part. He introduces us to his friend, who will be challenging the brand new Camaro driving middleweight champion, or as he's called here on this episode a couple different times, the junior heavyweight champion. I don't know. They clearly don't remember or give a shit about that belt. It's Danny's belt that he brings from the house.
Yeah.
Hey, Danny, when you come Monday night, bring that belt with you. What is it? The junior middle heavy TV. What is it? But folks, it's a Festivus miracle a week early. The Disco Inferno has arrived in Memphis. Let's check this out.
Oh, here's some disco music, and here's Johnny Polo here.
Dave Brown, I feel so proud and lucky today to be able to introduce to all you Memphis morons the man from Studio 54 in New York City, the Disco Inferno. Tell him about it, yeah. Woo. Tell him about it. Down here in Memphis, Tennessee is the only place I've been where disco is as unappreciated as here. But that's because these rednecks are too stupid to have any discos. They've been brought up going to these honky-tonk bars, listening to this Winona Mud and Billy Ray Virus and Clint Crack and all that country garbage. But the reason people love country so much here is because misery loves company. And you rednecks are the most miserable bunch of people I have ever seen in my life.
Well
spoken. Tell them about Monday night. Monday night in the Memphis Coliseum, I got Danny Davis, the middleweight champion. This tomato can has no chance against me because I am the 11th time unified Brooklyn Wrestling Federation champion. So you tell me what type of chance Danny Davis is going to have for the middleweight title against me. I'm going to take the middleweight title. I'm going to take it home. I'm going to put it on my mantle right next to my autographed picture of John Travolta. All right.
Well, all right. Well, you're going to have to win it first. That may not be quite that easy. Thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Polo. Let's check the entire card.
So I'm ashamed to admit I was a fan of Disco Inferno back in the day. It always struck me as a silly gimmick that was tailor-made for Memphis. I didn't really see it around his brief interlude here in Memphis. I really didn't see it as it happened the first time around. Some of the shit he says in his promo, this autographed picture of John Travolta, he calls your Uncle Danny a tomato can, which is clearly a New York thing, I suppose. I don't know, because it was certainly lost on me. Check him out there. He's I don't know. I preferred the John Travolta suit wearing Disco Inferno that we saw initially come into WCW in like 95. I didn't like the later stuff, and this is an odd look here, but I don't know. What do you guys think about Disco, and do you think he's going to be a good addition here?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I prefer the suit too. Seeing the way his shirt's tied there, it looks like he's about to leave here and get on a float with a man in like a leather underwear. Like I was like, what the heck? Why has he got his shirt tied? But see, this was a surprise to me because I wasn't watching Memphis that much at the time. Yeah.
You need a manager, honey.
Yeah. So I wasn't watching Memphis at the time. So I was shocked when Disco Inferno came out. I was like, I didn't know he ever came through Memphis. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, calling your uncle a tomato can, that was weird. And then he said something about being the Brooklyn Wrestling Federation's champion.
12-time unified Brooklyn Wrestling Federation.
And Dave gave a look like, oh, that's impressive. like quit faking it, Dave. You've never heard of this place either. But yeah, I was excited to see Disco. I was a Disco fan. Like I liked him in WCW. I thought it was different. I think he got way too much heat for being a wrestler. Like his skill level, I thought he did fine. So yeah, I was excited to see him here.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing with me. I just, I don't like his look right here, but it obviously it's tailored to get on the nerves of the average redneck. You know what I mean? With the disco in general, didn't seem like a lot of people around this area would have liked disco back in the day. That's why he came in and immediately started trashing country artists. But joke's on you, disco. If you started trashing rap artists, maybe that would work here. But I don't think the crowd cared. I don't think the crowd cared that he was screwing around with Vince Gill and all of them.
They didn't. I don't think half that crowd got those references. Then they didn't get. I don't think they got the character in general. Probably. What did you think about the KC and the Sunshine Band playing through the entire promo?
I mean, it works. I've seen other movies kind of use that as the embodiment of the disco era. Like whenever they're doing a montage, they'll play that song. So I got it. But at the same time, that funky ass hat that looked like he should be in what was that with Fat Albert and the Fat Albert gang or whatever it was.
You got it.
What?
Fat Albert and the gang.
You got it. That's it.
Okay. Well, either way, yeah, it just looks so shitty. But he was trying to be the super heel, I guess.
Well, let's take our last commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll run down the card and see what we're working with this week. We'll be right back.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
All right, folks, as always, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Check out all the great podcasts available over there at WrestleCopia.com. All right, let's see what this has all been building towards, guys. Let's see what the card is for this coming Monday night at the Mid-South Coliseum.
Match, Randy Rockett will be going against the Master of Terror. Following that, Scott Taylor takes on Johnny Polo. Junior heavyweight title match. the Disco Inferno. Maybe more about him a little bit later on. He'll be going against Danny Davis. The legend, Tony Falk. Well, I don't know. He's got his work cut out for him. Colin Scott's from Australia. Used to play rugby, played in the NFL for the Cardinals. We introduced him to you a little bit earlier in the program. He's big, and he wasn't backing up an inch from the legend Tony Falk. He's been working out with the USWA for some time now in training, and he's set to go in his debut match coming Monday night at the Coliseum. It's not all USWA tag titles will be on the line. Principal C.W. Bergstrom and his A student, Melvin Penrod Jr., will be going against the former champions. These guys held the belts a long, long time. Rex King and Steve Dahl had a falling out right here with Bert Prentice today. You heard what Prentice said. We all did. He said they didn't deserve a title shot. They came out and got that straight, tore up the contract with Prentice, so it's going to be King and Dahl against Principal C.W. Bergstrom and A student Melvin Penrod with the USWA tag titles at stake. The unified title. Boy, it doesn't get very easy, does it? You just win the title. Everything is celebration for Jerry the King Lawler, and all of a sudden, Bert Prentice has announced, and he didn't give us a very good look at him there a little bit earlier, but this is the opponent, the Vampire Warrior, being brought in by Bert Prentice, and he says the Harts, Owen and Brett, to go against the King, Jerry Lawler, with the unified title at stake. But then, the final match of the night, the main event. There are about 3 or 4 main events on here, but this is going to be the 6-man grudge tag match. The fabulous one, Jeff Jarrett, Miss Texas, referee Frank Morrell on one side, looking for Brian Christopher, Miss Simpson, and referee Paul Neighbors, who is going to be facing a bunch of people, Corey, as you said, who are going to be looking for him.
Well, all right, guys, there's the card, and it's time to answer the questions about this episode. So we'll lead off with the one we always lead off with. What was your least favorite part of today's show?
So I know I'm probably going to get some heat for this because it seems to be pretty well liked. I'm just not a fan of the Melvin Penrod stuff. I mean, I'm not, you know, I don't know. I know what we're trying to do. I feel like Melvin. Like I see what they're trying to do. I know what they're trying to do. But to me, you can't have a goofy, dorky character that's a straight A student that doesn't look intimidating be, you know, an intimidating powerhouse big guy wrestler. You know, I guess he's not a powerhouse, but you know what I mean. He's just like one of those guys. He's dominant when he gets in the ring. It's not a pushover. I don't know. For me, I know it spices up Bergstrom's character a little bit, and it's way better than what he was doing before. But for me, it's not really my favorite part of the show.
That's fair.
Mine was the 10-minute Colin Scott's saga, where it was like this is your professional life deal. And each minute of those segments was, I'm trying to think of something close I could describe it. It'd be like Best of the Bruise Brothers, almost, but not quite there. He comes out and he looks great, but obviously I don't know if it's CTE going on or something, but obvious blown spot whenever him and Tony Falk started to tangle. And it just left a bad taste in my mouth. The lead in was hard. The Rougeau brothers had a better promo video putting them over for the upcoming week coming to Memphis than Colin Scott did. It was absolute trash.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. You could have just dropped that entire segment out of the show. It would have made for a better show. And it wasn't even like so bad it was good or fun. It was just bad. Let's not. To respond to Richard's thing, I get what you're saying, and I feel that to some degree. My thing is, if you eventually could have paid this off where this whole thing of calling him his A student and implying that he's smart and he's a nerd and he's, his favorite student and all that shit, turned out to just be a ruse of like, this is my way of bringing in this badass dude, but then disguising him as a nerd so nobody takes him seriously, and then he beats everybody's ass, it would have played out a little better, at least where it would make a little more sense, and it put some more heat on Bergstrom because, hey, he had the foresight to do that. But I don't think that's where we're going with this. So it is kind of contradictory of like, okay, well, this kid's a nerd and he's a suck up to Bergstrom, but then he's kind of a badass in the ring. I get it. I still like it better than a lot of the other characters that we've got going on. It gives the principal character some purpose, regardless of whether it makes sense or not. It's still the only thinly veiled reason we could have a fucking wrestling high school principal here, because God knows there's no other reason for that ever to happen. So we'll see how it goes. Second question, what was your most favorite part of this show?
I enjoyed the main event. Like, I knew what we were doing. I wasn't even upset that there was a interference DQ type thing, because we got, we got the Vampire Warrior at the end, and I'm a big fan of dude. Like Gangrel, I liked his character in WWF when he was in there, and then like I said before, when I met the guy, like he did a show with me here in Henderson, Tennessee, and couldn't ask for a nicer guy. Like, you can't root against this guy. He is so nice. He's so cool. He was ahead of his time with the vampire gimmick. Like, everything about him was just really cool. I enjoyed that part. I think more than I have a lot of other things. It was a surprise to me. Like, I didn't think we were going to see him this week. I thought we'd probably see him Monday night. But yeah, I loved everything about that.
So mine is going to be a little personal, but it's Uncle Danny winning the Camaro, man. Or as Corey, the Chevrolet Camaro, like he literally went through fire to get to that car, because we talked about him winning the IROC back in the Continental days, the blue one, the old school Camaro. Mm-hmm. He won it in the tournament, so to speak, back there. And that's literally what happened here. But the reason he purchased this new red Camaro was because probably 2 weeks before this, he was still driving the blue IROC Z Camaro. And he's driving between, I don't know, it was somewhere he had done a spot show, and he was coming back home. And all of a sudden, he just sees like fire coming out from under the hood. And he pulls over, and it's literally damn near out of control to where he's just getting out. And then the damn thing's damn near engulfed completely. He burnt all of his arm, like his forearm hair on both arms, getting his gear bag and his Halliburton out of the IROC. Yeah.
Wow.
And so he goes, and I guess in Memphis when he's there or whatever, and gets this newer Camaro, and that's going to be the new car or whatever. But yeah, dude, my granny told me that story. I guess he had called her right after it happened or whatever.
Yeah.
It was like, yeah, I almost died. And dude, the only way that he knew that it was on fire was somebody, he's just going down the interstate. They slow down beside him, and they start yelling at him and pointing. I guess it was coming out from up under, like the
planes, trains, and automobile style.
Yeah,
the car's on fire.
Literally, that's what happened. And he pulls over, and like I said, he barely got out to, and was able to get the gear bag and Halliburton. But yeah, so I remember the day he pulled up in the red Camaro, dude, in 1993, seeing that pretty son of a bitch drive up in the back alley at my granny's house. Like, oh my God, he paid me to armor all and clean his interior on that car. I don't know how many times when he would come to town. Yeah.
You know what I'm hearing? You know what I'm hearing? A very, very, very well told, remembered story that we told insurance. It just caught on fire, middle of the road.
No, honestly, he wrote a letter to General Motors after thanking them because that fucking IROC dude, it had 350,000 miles on the son of a bitch, and he had only changed the oil. Like that's all he had done. So
One
yeah, he
time, is that
thanked
why
him.
it caught on fire?
Man,
I only changed the oil once. Turns out that's the recipe for fire.
That's my favorite part of this week's show too, but it also folds into my biggest gripe with the USWA in general. Is so last week we have a 16-man tournament to award a Camaro. The whole night is focused around that. We set an extra ring up for that. It should be a huge deal. And in the moment, in the night that it happened, I guess it was, because the crowd pop, like you said, was louder for that than anything we'd heard in quite some time. Even more so than Lawler winning, beating Owen Hart for the belt and all that. But by the following Saturday, we're calling his title the junior heavyweight title. Hell, Disco Inferno, who just got here, knew it was the middleweight title. But on the graphic, we're calling it the junior heavyweight title. And he's in like the third match on the show, wrestling this new guy, Disco Inferno. I mean, you think he would be figured into something major. Why the fuck we got to have the referee Frank Morrell in that match? Why couldn't we have Jeff, Danny, and Miss Texas against Brian, Miss Simpson, and somebody besides referee Paul Neighbors? I don't know. It just, to me, they do things that they could do a lot with, and then they just squander it, in my opinion. But to them, it was just a matter of, hey, Danny's buying a new car. We can make something out of it. We can get him a good deal at Gwatney if we promote them on the show. And so he did it. Because that was a thing back in the day in territories. If a guy was getting a new car or a boat or a motorcycle or whatever, suddenly they're winning a tournament. So not only are they getting a new cool something, but then they're getting put over because they'd go win it in every town in the loop. You know what I mean? I'm sure he won that car like every night for the next week and a half or whatever. But that's just, just me griping. So if this was actually 1993, would today's television have inspired you to buy a ticket to this Monday night's card?
As a kid, no. As an adult that knows where some of these parties are going, like Scott Taylor and Raven and Disco Inferno, yeah, I would have wanted to go see that. But as a kid, not knowing any of these people, it wouldn't have been enough name value for me as a kid to see all these new faces. I'd want to see some of the WWE guys, But now, yes, I would go. As if this is Richard from today's world, yes, I'm going.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go as well, but it's literally just off of Principal Bergstrom Penrod versus Simply Divine, and with Bert in all that drama as well. And then, Vampire Warrior, like I said, I loved it. It was kind of brutal comparable to stuff that Lawler's had to deal with recently. And I mean, they didn't even show how that ended. It was just, they went to a commercial break and he was still out there biting on him and everything. So we don't really know what it took to really get the vampire off of him. So yeah, I would be all attached to the idea, well, he might kill Lawler at the Coliseum.
In there? Yeah, I would have loved them, see them play it out like you was talking about earlier, like have it turn Lawler into a vampire and we have Vampire King going around for a while and play off that. But we weren't that far down the rabbit hole in 1993 of gimmicks yet, I guess. Long-term gimmicks. Honestly, listening to Dave run down the card, the two matches that would have got me there, I would have wanted to have seen Scott Taylor against Johnny Polo. For some reason, that match just really stood out to me as a potentially fun match. And I want to see Disco Inferno challenge Uncle Danny for the junior middleweight title. So let's see how those two matches play out on Monday night, shall we? All right. July 12th, 1993 at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis. We unfortunately do not have a crowd total for that one. We don't know how it drew. But here we go. Match number 1, Randy Rockett defeated the Master of Terra. Match number 2, Jeff Gaylord defeated Johnny Polo. No Scott Taylor. Third match, the Disco Inferno pinned TD Steele. No Uncle Danny. No middle junior heavyweight title. No explanation. Now, if those two matches don't knock you off your feet, get ready for this. Number 4, Tony Falk pinned Colin Scott's, however the fuck you want to say this football rugby clown's name. Tony Falk won the match. Maybe why I don't remember the guy. I'm guessing he doesn't get a long run in Memphis and probably doesn't get a run anywhere else because I don't know if him ever. We'll get to it here in a moment. I'm going to read you a little bit from the Observer, and they were saying this guy was a shoe-in. This was just like a stop in the road on his way to the WWF. But I don't remember ever seeing Colin Scott's in the WWF. So let's finish out the rest of this card. Real quick before we finish the last couple matches, I guess we need to too late to guess. But anyway, USWA Tag Team Champions C.W. Bergstrom and Melvin Penrod Jr. defeated Simply Divine by disqualification. In the 6th match, USWA Unified World Heavyweight Champion Jerry the King Lawler defeated the Vampire Warrior via disqualification. And then in the main event, which I don't understand why this went on last over the last 2 matches, Jeff Jarrett, Miss Texas, and referee Frank Morrell defeated Brian Christopher, Miss Simpson, and referee Paul Neighbors in your main event. Looking at the Observer for the week, they said that Colin Scott had been a former player for the Phoenix Cardinals football team. He originally was a Australian rugby player. He has the size of an atom bomb, but not near the athletic ability. They said that he had been brought in for a quick afternoon training session with the WWF and Dory Funk Jr., and they sent him to the USWA, where I don't even think they apparently did an afternoon training session with him. They said that the intention is to get him shined up in Memphis and ready to come back to the WWF. It says that the Vampire Warrior, David Heath, is someone else who's also on the WWF Get Ready program. He has been sent to Memphis to perfect this vampire gimmick to eventually come to the WWF. Now, people are listening to this going, oh, yeah, that checks out. Not exactly, because the fucking Gangrel doesn't show up in the WWF like 98. This is 93. So the vampire gimmick didn't exactly pan out for another few years in WWF. Now, talk about cool shit. Has there ever in wrestling been a cooler entrance than Gangrel Fire entrance from the Brood days? I dare you to find one.
Awesome.
Now, the results that I had found for Monday night's card said Tony Falk pinned Colin Scott, which left me floored. Now, from the Observer, they say that Tony Falk won that first match by disqualification. That sounds a little more reasonable, that the football guy kind of goes ballistic and referee Paul Neighbors disqualified him. That all makes so much more sense. I'd like to think that's what happened, but they said their note with that said fans who reported this said that Colin Scott looks beyond awful, was their exact quote. They also said in the Observer that 2 rookies from a local training school, the Hawk and Leon Downs, made their debuts on the spot shows this week. Hawk doesn't look like he's going to be much, but Leon Downs showed a lot of promise. And we know that Leon Downs does end up hanging around the USWA for a few years and having moderate success. So I guess they got that one right. And then they say that Lawler defeated Vampire Warrior by disqualification when Bert Prentice interfered. They double-teamed Lawler. Excuse me. With Bert giving Lawler a number of big splashes while the Vampire Warrior stole his unified title belt. and they were going to imply on television that Lawler is out injured, but the truth is Lawler will be down working a swing of WWF house shows against Razor Ramon. So they're taking him off TV due to that. And then they say Disco Inferno is Glenn Gilbernetti from the Georgia Indies, who is not currently under any sort of WWF deal, obviously. And he ends up getting discovered by WCW rather, during this run. And we all know how that plays out. But again, that's still a couple of years away too. So it wasn't anything immediate. So there you go. That's this week's card. If I had went and bought a ticket when I get there and it's Jeff Gaylord versus Johnny Polo and it's TD Steele versus the Disco Inferno and the guy who won the fucking car last week's not even here, I would have been very, very unhappy with that card in general than the two DQs and the other two matches that you would give a shit about.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't know why they didn't push Mr. Uncle Danny a little bit more, especially after his big win. But yeah, I would have been very disappointed having gone to this.
Well, maybe that's why, I don't know personally, but what Gene said, think about it. They spend all that time, they invest all of that, getting another ring in this big event. He wins, feel good story. And then it's a 20-second replay on Memphis TV. And then that's all that they ever say of it. And then he slid in like a preliminary match, the next week. It may have pissed him off. Who knows?
And honestly, being Disco's first match in, I wouldn't doubt that they didn't tell him, oh, yeah, next week you're coming back to lose your middleweight title to this Disco Inferno guy that we're bringing in from the Georgia Indies. And he was like, no, you're not. We're not doing that. That's my belt. So, so we'll have to see what the follow-up is. We'll have to see if Uncle Danny's away for a while or if maybe just something happened with the new car. But
they locked his keys in there. He didn't have a spare yet.
Exactly. This had the new fancy automatic door locks on the 93 model that the old 88 version didn't have. So we'll follow the story as it develops, as they say. So right now, last week Dave was bummed out, and we know why he was bummed out, because he saw a promo with Paul Neighbors without a shirt on. But sadly, he's bummed out again this week, guys. And turns out Richard knew why. What do we have going on here, Josh?
That's kind of a recap to my trip I took last weekend. I found a rather ethnic section of a flea market type antique store. I took a few pictures. Well, my wife took a few pictures and sent them to old Richard Lee for me.
Well, I think we finally, folks, we have uncovered the root of the issue between Josh and the Harris twins. See, folks don't know, Josh has a twin.
Yep.
That he hasn't been telling us about. They went on vacation together, and here they are showing off their potential Native American gimmick. So that's why he doesn't like the Harris brothers, because he's a twin, and he thinks that he should be the only twin in the USWA game here in podcast world.
I think I called that the Cultural Appropriation Association.
Oh yeah.
What's your twin brother's name, Josh?
Frank.
See, they didn't go for the rhymey thing. They didn't go Josh and Frank.
No, my mom was like, damn, there's another.
His middle name's Lee, though, at the same time, though. So you have Joshua Lee and Frank Lee.
Franklin Lee.
Frankly, I don't give a damn. He likes to use that joke a lot, I hear. And so is that, and that's your wife there in the front?
No, that's a picture that I found like after the headdress.
I just found it funny. I took some pictures of my wife, and then we put that up. Like, all right, so that implies, if you're just watching and don't know any better, that he has a Native American wife. Her name is, I don't know. I don't have a name in mind to throw out that's Native American, which is probably best.
Yep.
Pocahontas.
No, what did
There
I
you
call
go.
her? I called her something in the chat. Wigwam.
Yes. Lady Wigwam there.
Yeah.
Princess Wigwam, I guess, would be the Native American version of that. So, all right. So we've hit on Native Americans. We've talked about Hitler. We've defamed the late great Bert Prentice. I think it's about time to start wrapping this one up, guys. We do want to mention, if you enjoyed our previous live stream that we did, and I think the last one was it October?
Mm-hmm.
Was it? Might have been November. I'm not sure, but anyway, got a lot of views on that. Got some good feedback. We're doing another one as a special, I guess maybe Christmas gift, if you will. I don't know if you look at that or not, but on Christmas Eve on Monday, December 23rd at 6 p.m. Central Time, we are going to be doing another one of those live streams. We're going to be watching some USWA matches and calling them, and we hope you guys join us live. Come in there, leave us some comments. You can ask questions. You can make statements. You can tell us how offended you are by some of the jokes we've made. You can tell us how much you don't appreciate spoilers on this show and put Brian Trammell in his place. Who knows? We might even invite him to join us. We'll see. But anyway, check that out live on our Facebook page, December 23rd. That's a Monday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review the show, whatever podcast platform that you find us on. That sure would help us out if you would do that. And don't forget, each and every week, come rain, sleet, or snow, they're like the U.S. mail. They can't be stopped. P3 Radio. It's been going on for like 17 years now. It predated the internet. They used to record these on cassette tapes and send them out to people back before the internet was a thing. What fun can people expect if they check out this week's episode of P3 Radio?
It's our Valentine's Day extravaganza.
This will be where Big T would go, well, this week they talked about Valentine's Day, even though it's Christmas, and it was great. Well, Josh was anyway.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun this week. We actually are going to be in some like weird, like you said, because we don't like missing weeks. We've only really missed one, and we had something on the show that week. It was like a what was it? A clip show, but we haven't really missed.
It was
any...
10 minutes of new talk, so that was new.
Yes. So we've
New
never
to
had.
talk?
Yes, hot dog party.
Like Jackie.
So we are recording a bunch of shows to kind of get us through the holiday season, and we had a lot of fun this week recording the shows. So we're looking forward to people listening to it, and hopefully they enjoy it too.
I can't give a detailed like review, like fucking Brian can tell you everything you talked about. Like he was reminding you shit last week that you talked about. If you remember, you talked about. I think he did the same to Josh the week before. But now I've gotten a chance to hear this week's episode earlier than I typically would, and I enjoyed the Valentine's Day talk. Found a lot of that relatable. I enjoyed the mall talk. I would have been so jealous when I was that age to know that you guys got to hang out at the mall for like hours at a time. That sounded fun. Listen in and hear the story of young teenage Josh and Richard and their friend getting hit on by college age girls and getting invited to a bar. That's definitely a fun story. They're rocking around in some Jordans at the mall and they're getting hit on by college girls. You got to hear that one. It's a good time. And like I say, my memory is absolute dog shit. I just listened to this night before last. I wish I could remember more, but those are the two things that really stood out. Also, Josh's experience with some pieces of shit at a concert that would not shut up, which I found ironic because Josh is trying his best to gripe about people not shutting up. And Richard will not shut up, interrupting. Every time he starts to say it, Richard goes, "You mean like so-and-so?" I'm like, well, no, not
really,
that.
they're not Northerners. They're from Missouri, so that makes them Southerners.
Richard is zoning in on one aspect, and Josh is trying his best to get the story out about these assholes that won't shut up. and Richard won't shut up. And honestly, I would love to think that was a bit that they planned, but I know these guys well. I know it wasn't. It just was a happy accident, but it makes it even as I was listening to it, I was laughing, going, Richard, shut up. You're going to be the one who's great about next week. Like, don't you hate when you're trying to do a podcast and people won't shut up and let you make your point?
We also learned that Josh would have gotten way more action had he just went to like Camping World as a kid.
The only thing preventing that was me not having a tent, baby.
There's a whole new meaning to pitching a tent when you was a kid there. That was fun because in Josh's mind now you can tell he's went back and replayed it and been like, I would have gotten so much ass in a tent in the living room.
No. Just out in the wilderness. I would have pitched that sumbitch up behind her house because that was the hurdle of getting ass as a teenager was you didn't have privacy.
Oh, see, I just pictured because you were talking about your mom hollering at you while you were in the tent. I thought that you were planning on doing the business right there, but you just got the tent zipped up and imply that you're in there by yourself. Why is that tent shaking, Josh? And shut up! I'm almost
I would have
done.
been foolish enough to put it in like my backyard or something. And told my mom, me and her's just in there studying,
playing cards. But yes, as always, P3 Radio, always a lot of fun. And that's what I enjoy about the show is you guys like aren't rigid. Like, all right, we have a format. We're going to stick to this no matter what. The conversation goes where it goes, just like a real conversation when you're hanging out with your friends, just like this fucking show. A lot of times where it just kind of goes where it goes. And I think it's more fun that way. And it's funnier that way because things come out that you don't think of until it comes up, but something strikes, that's the way you started talking about Valentine's Day. You weren't talking about Valentine's Day. You're talking about Christmas. And it caused Josh to think of something about Valentine's Day, and then you're down the rabbit hole with Valentine's Day. But again, it's a lot of fun. Check it out. Check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for the Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich. This week we did another Q&A episode. It's our third one. People have been sending in some great questions, and these guys are having a lot of fun answering those questions. And again, kind of like what we were just talking about. These questions, rattle things loose in their head, and they think about people and things that, we necessarily wouldn't think to even bring up on the show. But if somebody asks a question about a show, and then Tommy will be like, oh, yeah, so-and-so was on that show, and now we're talking about them. And on this one in particular, we had a question. Somebody had come across on cagematch.net where it had aliases, and it was like Doug Gilbert, the Dark Patriot. What was it? Rick Jones as an alias. And I was like, he wants to know, cagematch.net says one of your aliases was Rick Jones. And Doug's like, maybe, but I don't think so. I don't think I've ever wrestled as Rick Jones. So the next day I get online, start doing my research like I like to do. And sure enough, I find a WCW Saturday Night match from 1991 where the Z-Man, Tom Zink, is wrestling a guy named Rick Jones, who looks suspiciously a lot like our friend Doug Gilbert. And so took a screenshot of it and sent it to Doug. And Doug's like, well, I'll be damned. And so we've got that match now. We'll probably post up on the Facebook page. And we talked about wrestling bears and Tojo Yamamoto and the Von Erichs and a number of different fun topics, and about Doug and Tommy wrestling Effie and Allie Catch on a Game Changer wrestling show in Evansville in recent years, in which they were debating over who Effie kissed during the match. Turns out he kissed them both, because that's what Effie does. If you know who he is, then you all know exactly what that means. So fun show. Check that out. Follow the Facebook page at facebook.com/Doug Gilbert Podcast. By all means, please follow our Facebook page, facebook.com/Retro Wrestling Review. We still update it every single day with new content from the USWA past, and well, it's all in the past, but from the very distant past and to 1990 all the way up to the end in 1997. We're constantly looking for more material to put there for you. So that's going to be it for this week. Thank you all for listening, and be sure you join us next week for episode number 32. Can you imagine 32 weeks of this nonsense? And it's no sign of stopping. We've got I managed to fill in some even more holes in my collection this week, guys. We now have the entire year of 91, the entire year of 92, 93. I've only got a couple of holes to fill in 94. We got all of 95 and most of 96. So we can do this for as long as anybody can stand to listen to it, and then some more after that. So be forewarned, folks. But next week, join us for our Christmas in July episode of the Retro Wrestling Review, where we're going to be handing out Christmas presents to some of our USWA favorites and maybe not so favorites that we've dealt with, not just recently, but throughout the year so far here in 1993. That's right. We may even look up our friend Mean Mike Miller and send him a gift because we enjoyed his time here on the show so much. So that's it. Thanks. Anything before we go, guys? Any last minute digs you want to get in there? Appropriate comments?
Nothing appropriate.
All right. There you go. All right, folks. We'll see you right here next week for more of the Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast here on WrestleCopia.com.